This is, in my opinion, the single best sporting event in America every single year, the NCAA basketball tournament. It's got the most drama. It's the longest when you look at the full month that takes place. That first Thursday and Friday, you get so many games, 16 on one, 16 on the next. It's great. It's great for gamblers. It's great for sports fans. It's great for people who love good drama. It's also the least effective way to accurately identify the best team in the sport. Because in a one-and-done scenario, crazy things can trip you up. And it oftentimes does not reward the best team from early November until the end of March, early April with that national champion. Until this season. It is a chalky Final Four. But it is a just Final Four. And Ken Pomeroy, who's been at this for a while, and his stats and his analytics, it's gospel to the college basketball selection committee. He knows this is the best. In fact, these are four of the best teams of the last 20 years, or the last 10 years. No, 20 years, if you look at this. Four of the best teams. This dates back to 96, 97, so even more than 20 years. Four of the best teams, according to Ken Pom, are playing this upcoming weekend in San Antonio. Maybe the most loaded field for a Final Four that we've ever seen. And you see it right here. The entire Elite Eight. Duke, Houston, Florida, Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, Michigan State, and Texas Tech, even though they were a 3 seed, ranked higher than St. John's, who was eliminated in round number 2 by Arkansas. They all participated in the Elite Eight. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the most just NCAA tournament in history. Now, we'll get into this a little bit later. That has a ton of people pissed off saying Cinderella is dead. The sport is ruined. It's about to be over for college basketball. Bullshit. All of it is. It's not over. Not by any means. This is what we want. That Elite Eight, those games, those teams, not all the games were great. Alabama got their ass whipped by Duke. Tennessee got their ass whipped by Houston. It happens. Duke and Houston are two great teams, as we just showed you in that graphic. Four of the best teams of the last 25 years right there in Houston and Duke. So those Tennessee and Alabama teams, who are also very, very good, as we just showed you, ran into a buzzsaw in those games. But this is great. We get clearly the clear-cut four best teams in America doing battle in San Antonio to win a national championship. Duke versus Houston, Auburn versus Florida. I don't want to hear about, oh boy, the SEC got killed. The SEC was the best conference in basketball. Shut up, everybody. There's no other argument to be had here. It was the best. They broke records for teams in the tournament. They broke records for Sweet 16 teams. They got two teams going head-to-head in a national semifinal. The winner of that game has a great shot to win a national championship. But they're likely going to have to beat Duke, who looks pretty unstoppable right now and looks like they're headed to a national title. It's going to be a great championship game. It's going to be a great championship weekend in San Antonio. And Hutton, for all the bitching and moaning about Cinderellas and wanting to see more lower seeds win games, we get to the end of this thing, and I'm thinking to myself, boy, this is right. This is the way it should be. We get 4 number 1 seeds. First time that's happened since 2008. And that was also in San Antonio, by the way, that Final Four. This is going to be terrific theater down by the Alamo this upcoming weekend.
Chad, we should have great matchups. I said the same thing, though, about the Sweet 16 and then the Elite Eight, right? Like this, it felt like and hear me out here, it felt like a mini NBA at times this past weekend for me, where you have one great scoring output on one night and then just you can't hit the broadside of the bar in the next. And I'm not talking about the quit aspect of what we see in the NBA. I'm just talking about the final margin. There were times, you're right, Duke looks unstoppable. There are times where Auburn does. Hell, Tennessee looked unstoppable against Kentucky. But then they don't carry that over consistently. Houston, they can win in multiple ways. We saw the way their defense certainly played. But I go into the Final Four thinking, yes, this is going to be awesome. But maybe we see one great performance on Saturday night that doesn't carry over for the same team on Monday. And at times, Chad, I found myself almost rooting for, please let there be a close game this weekend so we don't have to talk about the fact that they're lopsided and all the Cinderella's dead. Because it's not dead that the top teams advance in what is Auburn was far and away the number one team in America at points during the season where it was this good of a parity, right? I look at it and go, this is about what we expected. And everyone that filled out their brackets, a lot of people had number one and number two seeds advancing. So they also had chalk.
Yeah, that's my Final Four. Like, nobody cares about, what individuals pick for the Final Four. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, like, this was one. We sat around and talked about it in studio the Monday after Selection Sunday. I said, boy, this feels like the best teams are the 1-2 seeds, and they're going to keep advancing, and it's going to go right into the Final Four. I think I had 7 of the Elite Eight right, and I have the Final Four correct. And I've got Florida over Duke for the national championship. How many brackets are going to come down to Auburn, Florida, or Duke winning it, right? I think it's pretty even when you look at percentages of people who picked one of those 3 teams to win it all, and they're all playing in San Antonio with a chance to cut down the nets. So I think that part of it is fantastic. Let's get to Tennessee, Houston a little bit here. Tennessee was miserable offensively. Houston had a lot to do with that. They're a great defensive team, and they made life very hard on Tennessee. Tennessee also did a lot of it to themselves by just missing a lot of open threes in the first half and shots they could have made. But post-game, something jumped out to me. There's all these. We're going to get into the post-game Kentucky also and some of that audio. There's a lot of talk, and there's some similarities between Tennessee and Kentucky players post-game. You see all of these different vignettes of players getting emotional. They had a whole montage of players and coaches crying before the Elite Eight games on Sunday that Turner and CBS showed. And I think it's great to capture the emotion of it and the finality of the NCAA tournament, which there's that in every sport. When you're in a tournament and you're just trying to win to play the next round, then it's over. Any situation, not like a Super Bowl where no matter what, it's over when the game's over, but over before you wanted it to be over. And you capture that with a press conference where players and coaches get emotional. But the way Jemai Mashack talked about who he wanted to win for and who he was playing for, while being brutally honest about not necessarily always liking the person he wanted to win for, in the end, I thought was really good. Here is Jemai Mashack of Tennessee after their loss to Houston.
It's really not about me. I don't care about getting any of the glory. I don't care about getting any of the accolades, nothing like that. I just care about, really shining a light on this guy right here, shining a light on these 2 right here, because I see him put in so much work. I seen Coach Barnes be the most consistent person every time. Even though we fight, we get into it, It just seems like, we don't want to talk to each other anymore, but we go right back to practice. We get right back to coaching me like he loves to coach me. He knows how much I put in his game. But I wanted to get there for him, I really wanted people to realize how good of a coach he is. Sometimes communication can be off sometimes, between him and the players, and, that happens. But, man, I wanted to get there for him. I wanted to get there for ball fans, man. I wanted them to be have something that they could be proud of.
And that's Jemai Mashack post-game. Hutton, the big takeaway for me there is you don't have to like someone to respect them all the time. And he very honestly said, hey, there are days we don't want to talk to each other, and that communication is off with coach and players. But I think ultimately everything you hear about Rick Barnes and that Tennessee program is those guys know that Rick Barnes has their best interest at heart, and he is going to coach them hard, but that at the end of everything, he loves them, and he wants what's right for them and what's best for them in all things in their lives. And I think that came across with Jemai Mashack, which was pretty cool. And the disappointing part of all this is I, too, wanted to see Rick Barnes have that moment. I wanted to see Zakai Ziegler have that moment. But much like life, sports are tough sometimes. Sometimes you run up against a better team, and I thought Houston was a better team than Tennessee, quite frankly, in that game, and probably a better team all year. And it wasn't meant to be for Rick Barnes. And odds are he's going to end his career with that one Final Four appearance with Texas. Doesn't mean that he hasn't taken Tennessee on the best stretch of that program's history over the last 3 years, and especially these back-to-back Elite Eights.
Yeah, and well said. I mean, look, sometimes, and I say most of the time for me, it's about what could have been instead of what was. Like in the moment you're thinking about, the Final Four run instead of looking at what has been accomplished. And the reason why we take that and play it on on OutKick today with Meshack is that team is the last of a dying breed. And the reason they are is because teams that are not as close, as connected, the camaraderie is not there, those teams are winning. I mean, Duke's really, really good. There's no way that team is as connected in one heartbeat as the Tennessee Volunteers in this group that just ended their season. But that doesn't mean that they're the best team in the country, and it doesn't mean that they always have to like their coach. They don't always get along, but that's life. Mm-hmm. You know, in a world where if you're upset about whatever, you have to run laps after practice, and all of a sudden that's punishment by exercise. I look at Tennessee and think, well, there's Tennessee, Purdue, Michigan State. Who else would we throw out there that are teams in this Sweet 16?
Houston, I'd put Houston on that list. Houston. They're a tough, connected group of veteran guys that I definitely see a lot of the similarities there. Yeah,
that's the point. That have been connected. Like that to me is the emotion that you see there that we don't see in every program. It doesn't mean that the teams that are not like Tennessee are bad, or that's just not how you're supposed to play. But it's just something we're not going to see on an annual basis that played out right in front of us. And most of the teams that do represent what Tennessee's about in this year are out in the first or second round. And this was a team that was trying to make the run to the Final Four doing that.
No, you're spot on with that. And I'd also say for a Tennessee basketball program to even be possible under Rick Barnes, you have to have those guys who have been there around that coaching staff for a while and understand the culture. And they're, for lack of a better term, there's a torchbearer award. And they talk a lot about Tennessee, the torchbearer. There has to be torchbearers of that culture that have been there and done that. Ziegler and Gainey and Meshack were the perfect guys to bring in a bunch of transfers like Chaz Lanier and Igor Milicic and Darling Stone DeBar. Mm-hmm. They can do that and handle it, and those guys are going to fit in, right? They're going to come along. They're going to join that group and that culture and be fine. When those guys leave, then the challenge becomes, well, now you got guys who didn't play or contribute as much. Felix Okpara certainly did, and he should be back as long as he doesn't transfer, but who knows. But when you have younger guys who haven't contributed, they've got to get going with that culture and bring in 5 or 6 transfers again. That's going to be the reality at Tennessee. It's the reality at a lot of places to fit into that system and that culture so there's not some gigantic drop-off, right? I don't think anybody's expecting right now. No one knows what Tennessee basketball will look like next year, and there's questions about Rick Barnes, whether or not he's coming back, to say that they're expecting them to get back to the Sweet 16 or Elite 8. But we'll see how they do in the transfer portal, and those very well might be the expectations again. Another program you pointed out, Hutton, who Tennessee beat in the Sweet 16 in Kentucky. By the way, great job in that game for Tennessee where they basically did to Kentucky what Houston did to them 2 days later. Completely shut them down physically. Lamont Butler guaranteeing victory against a guy like Zakai Ziegler and Jemai Meshack, probably not the best decision because Tennessee completely ran them off the three-point line. That was the one way Kentucky was going to win. It was the one way they won the previous 2 meetings. They outshot Tennessee from the outside. Tennessee was not going to allow that to happen, and they shot the ball well too, and they easily won against Kentucky. But Hutton pointed this out to me. Post-game, you hear that press conference with Tennessee players talking about Barnes. That felt like the end of something. That felt like the end, or we're nearing the end of the Rick Barnes tenure. What we heard from some Kentucky players post-game on Mark Pope felt like they were part of the beginning of something, and I agree with them. Here are those Kentucky players.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think it was really cool. We was able to set the culture for Pope's first year, and people have to come in, and the bar going to be set high for the next people who come under Pope, and it's going to be fun to watch for sure.
If you're in the transfer portal and you're looking for a spot to go, go to Kentucky. I'll tell you that much. Go to Kentucky.
Yeah, and the sales pitch is going to be there for them, and that's going to be Mark Pope's philosophy. He's going to want to recruit some high school guys that are going to be there 3 or 4 years. Same thing Rick Barnes does. He's going to want to bring in veteran transfers. There's not going to be a lot of freshman and sophomore transfers. He wants 3rd, 4th, 5th-year guys to come in and be immediate contributors to that roster. And Hutton, watching Kentucky and Mark Pope this year, it's so rare that you get a coach swap in the same conference that works out for both teams. I feel like that happened with Calipari going to Arkansas. That was a welcome change for both. And I think Kentucky did a great job with Mark Pope he exceeded expectations in my book.
Yeah, I mean, Calipari had a parachute. He found his parachute with Tyson Foods. Great. And he did well with Arkansas in year one, how things ended, right? We remember how things end. With Mark Pope, I go back to the beginning. The press conference at Rupp Arena. They have his jersey that they found. They're bringing that out. They have Pitino, the head coach at St. John's, giving a pep talk to Kentucky fans saying, give this guy a chance. He's going to be great for the university. And now he exceeds expectations to where you have a player sitting at a postgame presser after they're eliminated saying, expectations are going to be high at Kentucky. Of course. But we didn't expect it to happen now. And I think I don't know, Chad, would you say they're a year ahead of where we thought Pope would have the program, considering the transfers that took place, those that had the exodus to Arkansas, and those that he brought in from where he was coming from? I mean, it's a tremendous job in a conference that put 14 teams in the tournament and beat Tennessee twice. So I look at that and think, man, if I'm the ACC, what the hell are we going to do? They can charge up and load up on coaches too, but the depth of the coaching resumes in the SEC and what has been accomplished by a year one coach in the SEC, tremendous job. And I go back to it hits on what you're talking about with Tennessee and Rick Barnes and what he's established as a culture. You bring in the culture that you had at Kentucky with a guy that has lived it and believes it, and that has instilled it in other programs that are still trying to bring on what Pope brought to them. And he just runs it back at Kentucky. They can sustain that. And that's what Kentucky basketball used to be. That's what Calipari couldn't really get going consistently. They had talented teams, but not that energy and that buzz that we thought was the true connection, the connected groups. You had talented individuals that were ballers. But the Kentucky of old, that's kind of the group that I saw starting to find a spark this year, and they're doing it with one of the players that was a part of that team in the history.
Hutton, I don't even know what building a college basketball program even looks like anymore, because the old process of, hey, year one's going to be rough, you're going to recruit your guys in, year two's going to be a little bit better, by year three you need to be in the tournament or close to it, right? Then you kind of build up that way until you can sustain it. I mean, now it's just every year it's either going to work with the guys you bring in the transfer portal or it's not. I think Dennis Gates at Missouri is a great example. Year one, no one expected anything. They're great, right? He's shot out of a cannon. He's SEC Coach of the Year. They go to the tournament. Year two is a disaster. They bring back some of the guys they bring in do not work. They go winless in the SEC. Year three brings in a few more transfers that do work, and they're back in the tournament once again. There's just no... Typically, that would be you have that bad year, so you continue to go down, or you're going to have a trajectory. I don't know what trajectory is anymore because you're dealing with a completely different group of guys year to year at some of these top programs. I think Kentucky's going to be able to attract some of the best in the transfer portal, right? I think Arkansas is going to be able to do that. I think Tennessee set up a nice system to get some guys and shown some success with Dalton Connect and Chaz Lanier coming in for 1 year and setting records while they were there. So it's going to be fascinating to follow college basketball and how, I don't know if evolves is the right word, because we're already sort of sustaining what it looks like, which is total variable year to year. See who you bring in the transfer portal. Team's going to look totally different, and you don't really know exactly what's going to happen. I would say that about a lot of teams, but maybe not Auburn, who gets the Final Four. They have the Willis Reed moment with Janai Broome in that game where it looked like to me he dislocated his elbow, and I'm thinking he's not going to be able to play in the Final Four. And then he goes to the locker room and comes back, and Bruce Pearl doesn't even talk to a doctor. And he says, are you good to go? And he says, yeah. He says, well, get your ass out there, and puts him to the scorer's table to check back in. And Hutton, that's sort of the Auburn way under Bruce Pearl, right? If you can go, you go, and you're going to go hard while you're in there.
I mean, Auburn has had flashes this season where I don't want to believe in them.
Yeah.
But by and large, they, right as I'm starting to turn on them, they have a performance that brings me back around and says, this is the best team in college basketball. And I mean, Florida was able to escape and somehow come back and win their game. I don't know how, with the time remaining and the way they did that when they got hot when they did. But man, is Auburn just that team that has been there since the tip-off of the season. And it's with performances like this. Hats off to Bruce Pearl. I mean, again, he knows his team. Let's just tie in everything here. He knows his team and his heartbeat of that locker room maybe better than any coach in America, because they start with a fight on a plane where they have to turn the damn thing around. And you said they were playing Houston, I think.
They went and beat Houston right after that.
They went and won.
Yeah, they flew back and won the game.
And they do that, and it's really no storyline after that. They just keep going, you know. There's some luck involved with the injury process, but Cooper Flag can say the same thing. Auburn's, I won't bet against them. I can't bet against Duke. I think we're overlooking Auburn and what they've done consistently well since November.
I think in a weird way, you're absolutely right. Auburn is the forgotten team for me in all this. And I forgot about them even playing the last game yesterday of the Elite Eight. It was almost kind of an afterthought, and I'm thinking, okay, they're up 8, they're up 10, they're going to win. Oh, Janai Broom's hurt, maybe not. Oh, he's back in. He buries a 3. The moment he gets back in the game, like, okay, it's over. And Auburn's going to win this game the way they win most of their games. And it is the Bruce Pearl way in a lot of ways. It's that volatility, and sometimes it can get so hot it burns you up internally as a team, and other times it scorches everybody else. That's the fire that Bruce Pearl teams play with at all times. I find that team to be mostly likable. Bruce Pearl, I think, is a likable coach now. I really do enjoy watching him speak about his team, and I like him. There's a DBAT mentality with that team. I mean, hell, he even said it on SEC Network that his guards aren't you-know-what. I'll also say Chad Baker-Mazara is maybe the biggest drama queen I've seen in this tournament and throughout this college basketball year. He's a talented player. He does not fit in with the Bruce Pearl, just go out and play your ass off mantra. I'm not saying he doesn't play hard, but man, oh man, if I see that guy fake fall one more time during the game or try to plead with the official over something, it's one too many.
He's just the guy that you want on your team if he's on your team, and that's it.
Yeah.
That Pearl, he fits in with Pearl just because he's on Pearl's team at the time.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
So, incredible job by Todd Golden with this Florida team. Like the roster construction through the roof. They really do have 2 of everything on that team, including 7-footers that can do it all and shoot threes. I am amazed that like the biggest story in November and December, ESPN front story was Todd Golden harassing women on campus. And then Florida just said, yeah, we did an internal investigation. There's nothing there. Nothing's going on. I haven't heard from any of the accusers that apparently had receipts and actual messages they provided. I haven't heard anything else about it. And this dude is the sweetheart Cinderella darling of the NCAA tournament. As he just gator chops his ass all the way through the NCAA tournament, and everybody celebrates him the entire time. I don't find him that likable of a coach. I'm also, a Tennessee grad, so that probably has something to do with it. But damn it if that team is not incredible. And damn it if that Walter Clayton Jr. isn't the guy you want taking every clutch shot for your team. Because when Texas Tech got up 10 points in that game with 3 minutes left, he took over. It was incredible the degree of difficulty of some of those shots, Hutton. But, man, that is a clutch basketball team that I would not want to play.
And Texas Tech is the hard-nosed, gritty team that no one was buying, and they're there as the 3 seed. And there was that one flinch. I think they believed they were going to the Final Four with 4 minutes to play.
It was right there. It was right there for them. 12-2 run and then a 14-2 run for Florida right back.
Yep, and they bought into the fact that they had just done it. They had climbed them out and they were going to the Final Four.
Yeah.
You can see it on their face after the game. Look, here's the truth about it. If the accusations are what they are and there's receipts, there are receipts here about Golden, this is the week to put it out. Am I right?
I don't. Yes, absolutely. It's a very odd story because
I know.
I could go back and find it. I'm sure it's still somewhere. There's so many details about Torrin Green on his staff and him, and like specifics about him following a girl somewhere on campus.
It's as detailed as Justin Tucker's.
Sending a picture of the girl to her phone saying, I know where you are. I mean, there was a lot of stuff in there. Yeah. And then it's like, you mean to tell me that this Florida basketball team is 5th in the country? We found no wrongdoing whatsoever. And it just completely went away. Completely. Look, the guy may be totally innocent. I don't know. I'm not one to take.
Sure.
We've seen in the Justin Tucker story and others too. Like, you can't just take an accuser's word for everything.
But it's a story.
It's multiple people. It's a story that just went away, and there's no reason to think he did anything, according to Florida. Not like, oh, there were a couple bad decisions here, or no, nothing, according to Florida. Completely went away, not talking about it. It's wild. It's totally wild to me, and I'm not trying to diminish anything that team has accomplished, and I think he's a really good, talented, certainly offensive coach, especially. He's a good coach. It's just weird. Again, I don't know he may be completely innocent. It's just very weird when you have that many accusations, that big of a story, for it to completely be swept under the rug and go away like that. You don't see that often, Hutton.
No, you do. Well, you do see it in college hoops. I think you tend to see it more often than in other spots. One shining moment, Chad. This is the tournament. This is about the student athlete.
Oh, yes.
Academics matter.
Oh, they matter so much you don't even go back to campus. You just fly straight to Newark, New Jersey and get ready for the next game. That's how much they matter.
It's the idea of this March Madness. They treat it like it's a glorified Disney script at times. Like, look, I'm not trying to knock what they did. I thought the detailed packages they were playing and the emotional packages about how abrupt it is to end the tournament. They come back to the studio and you got Ernie Johnson tearing up, and others too. I mean, take that and then post game with Todd Golden. That's a storyline that hasn't been mentioned, and let's be honest, Chad. It took place during football season. They were more worried about getting Billy Napier fired. It didn't.
That's
a
good
come
point.
Down,
it was in
down
November.
To
yeah.
What was leading headlines? It was. What's more important. And
why is DJ Lagway not throwing?
Yeah,
was more of the storyline.
Let's go back to
wrong with his elbow or shoulder?
Let's go back to this though. We saw what happened with Justin Tucker, or what hasn't happened with Justin Tucker, despite accusations. There are accusations, and then there's where's the truth in all of this? And unfortunately, it's a storyline then that hasn't been discussed enough now, because we based on what we were talking about then in the detail. Even from his perspective, if everything's false, for his sake, this is the time to get the story out.
So here's this is from Adam Brown just sent this to us.
Okay.
This is just an excerpt from the story, okay? Again, this completely went away. Like, OutKick may be the only outlet discussing this story today. I don't know if everybody else has been put on a gag order or not. Maybe we'll get a cease and desist.
I totally forgot about it today.
Don't know.
You brought it up. I have not thought about that, even watching Florida.
This is from CBS Sports, the CBS Sports story, okay? Quote, there was allegedly more than one occasion in which Golden was taking photos of women walking or driving and then sending those pictures to the subjects involved. Various stalking incidents also included Golden showing up to locations where he knew women would be. On allegedly more than one occasion, Golden was engaging women on Instagram by liking photos, then waiting until they read the DM before unliking the photo to avoid suspicion. Whatever, that's not much. But
what?
Two women, I don't really get that part. Two women spoke with the alligator about Golden's behavior while choosing to remain anonymous. The first woman, a former Florida student, claims Golden stalked her in person, both in his car and on foot, more than 10 times. She also accused him of sending unsolicited photos of his genitalia. Completely gone away. Don't hear anything about it. Cue up Luther Vandross. Let's get one shining moment going, because Todd Golden, what a great story, and I cannot stand watching that guy do his gator chomp on the sideline. If you wanted a Disney ending to this tournament, Deacon Rick Barnes cuts down the nets and then retires from Tennessee. That ain't happening. I'm not here to piss on the record of these coaches, but there's no Disney ending with these programs. John Shire seems like an okay guy, right? And what he's done at Duke in a short amount of time. I like Bruce Pearl, but Bruce Pearl is certainly not without sin, right, in his coaching career. Sure. Kelvin Sampson was fired from Indiana for cheating, right? He's I think a good dude, and I think that he coaches the right way and his team plays the right way at Houston. And then you got Todd Golden, allegedly stalking college students on Florida's campus.
What is it?
Like the predator of an alligator that he is.
So what does it mean to show up where you know girls are going to be? That's at any club across America.
Yeah, does he show up at like the rec center for aerobics class?
Yeah, are you going to the Grove?
I
at
think
Ole
the
Miss,
allegation is
tailgate?
the women are saying that he would show up where he knew they would be. I don't know how he knew they would be there unless he has a class schedule, like that creep from Michigan.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Like where, but like again,
I don't know. Just an observation. You're only going to hear it at OutKick. Probably never, definitely not at Turner or CBS. You're not going to hear anything about those Todd Golden allegations. Hutton, want to point out a great job when a great job is done. Great job, Bobby Burack at OutKick for his interview with Michael Wilbon. I have long admired Michael Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser, both very esteemed professionals in what they do. PTI has been a great show for a long time. They're both very good writers as well. And I thought Burack's interview with Michael Wilbon was fantastic. And it's getting acclaim from all corners of the media. I know you read it as well and thought the same.
Well, no doubt. I mean, hats off to Bobby for getting this interview. And I mean, and you can tell through Wilbon. Like Wilbon's like, thanks for asking me to be a part of this. Just to recap, LeBron and Stephen A. are going at it last week, and over what exactly? Like who started it? It felt very middle school / high school drama. Chad, and before we get into this, what did Wilbon say that we haven't said over and over again about LeBron and the saga and the drama and what ESPN is about and the clickbait bullshit, which is what Michael Wilbon is going to agree with here, which is so surprising because, again, he's saying it about two people who respect him in LeBron James and in Stephen A. Smith. And those at ESPN respect Michael Wilbon for what he represents and how long he's been there in his tenure. But just pointing out a few things through the article. Again, this is OutKick.com. And this was last Thursday where Wilbon spoke exclusively with Bobby Burack and OutKick. He's reacting to LeBron criticizing and being needs to debap when it comes to how he handles criticism, specifically from two reporters at ESPN, Stephen A. Smith and Brian Windhorst. And Bobby asked him, Michael, why now? Why is LeBron James, for the first time in his 22-year career, choosing to fight with the media? And Wilbon says, I appreciate you reaching out to me and tackling the story responsibly. I don't know, I haven't talked to LeBron about it, but I haven't been around him this year, not yet. But I'd love to talk to him about it, and I will the next time I see him. I've only been doing this for 45 years, talking to athletes in every sport. I don't come from the ESPN generation of covering only one sport. I covered everyone. And he goes through this litany of greats. He goes, and no one is better than LeBron when it comes to being engaging and patient with the media. I'm telling you, Bobby, no one is better than the media than LeBron. He actually answers your question. And then he says, I still don't understand his recent approach. I don't get it. It annoys me because some of these things are beneath him. Now he continues, which parts? The Windhorst comments that he pretends to be LeBron's best friend and is weird. I've been around LeBron when people have asked him about something that happened 2 decades ago in Ohio, and he would respond by saying, I don't even remember that. Ask Wendy. Wendy will know. And his issues with Stephen A. Smith. He says, they can go at it. I refuse to even consume their beef. People are calling me and asking me about it. My son asked me about it. I told him I didn't care. There is too much ego involved on both sides of it. I don't give a damn about the bullshit. But the Windhorst comments bothers me. Brian's in a tough spot because he takes his job seriously. Brian is accountable, which a lot of people in this business today are not. And it pisses me off. Look, Brian is not a show monkey. He's not out there drawing attention to himself with some ego or agenda. Windhorst is great at what he does. And I vouch for him any time against anyone. And if I were talking to LeBron right now, I'd say it to his face. Chad, let's stop there briefly. When he says he takes his job seriously. That, to me, is the biggest shot across the bow when in regards to Stephen A.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was like, whoa. Because he goes, that you can get over and talk about the clickbait, or we can talk about taking your job seriously. And, ESPN's leaning into Stephen A. discussing LeBron because it happened in public. And Stephen A. is saying certain things that he could have reported on. Brian Windhorst would have reported on it. That's the way I take that. And that, to me, is a big takeaway, just the first part of this back and forth.
I thought it was terrific. And that, yes, a big takeaway is Michael Wilbon, and I think he's not just talking about Stephen A. Smith. I think he is. I think he's talking about a lot of people in media now that don't take anything seriously and don't take their job seriously. And Wilbon says, hey, I am a product of the mainstream media. I'm not with new media. And he says, at one point, he says, I have 4.2 million Twitter followers. I don't even post on Twitter anymore. And he's talking about athletes being way too online. Like he said, get off social media if you can't handle it. They read too much into online criticism of trolls. They read too much into social media criticism, and they need to be off of it like he is. Basically, is what he said. Like if you can't handle it or it gets to you, then don't read it and don't be on it. Also, this was a big takeaway for me, and something we talk about a lot: the difference in generations of players. Right? There's this generational battle going on right now in the NBA: old school versus new school, old player versus new player. And old players beating up the new players right now for taking their precious product and throwing it into the trash. And TV ratings showing that. And that's the way older players are treating it. So Bobby asked to Michael Wilbon, LeBron thinks the media has covered him unfairly compared to past athletes of his status. Is that true? Wilbon's answer, which I think is terrific. No. LeBron is praised. I'm one of the people covering him. I've covered him for 20 years. He deserves the praise, because he's great, and he's been great from day one. But here's what annoys me, and I've heard this from players like Kevin Durant lately. They say that previous generation of players were not criticized like they are. F that. They better wake the F up. They don't think Michael Jordan was criticized for going to Atlantic City during a Knicks series. They don't think Jordan wasn't criticized for playing golf during the playoffs, really? They don't think Wilt was criticized? I've said this to these players privately, and now I'll say it publicly. Everyone gets criticized. They are just too young to know what the hell they're talking about. And then he says, but maybe I'm just old in that response. I thought that was very well said. And sort of, in a way, divided the age gap in the NBA, but also bridged it a little bit with the common denominator of all these guys are going to get criticized at one time or another.
Yes, I thought it was passionate. It was honest. It was authentic from Michael Wilbon, which is what you expect from Wilbon on PTI, which is a show that he said you won't find any discussion about Bronny. You won't hear the Bronny discussion they were not going to prop this up when ESPN is telling all the shows to lean into it, and they were. I mean, Chad, we played cuts from Ramona Shelburne talking about the talent that was just oozing out of Bronny James. And that his father nepotism had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. And meanwhile, you have one of the stalwarts in media across the country representing the journalistic aspect with a capital J and Michael Wilbon on a program that has been there for, it's one of the shows that you think of when you just think of the daily programming at ESPN that shouldn't go away, refusing to even mention it because it's laughable. Hats off to them. Because I took more about his comments about the media, and specifically the clickbait, than I did about LeBron. Because ultimately, it's the media feeding into the clickbait that fuels all of this. And if we took more of an approach from Wilbon, which we're all shocked by, that's the way it should be. If it's drama just for the sake of being drama to prop up Stephen A's YouTube page, then what are we doing covering it? We're talking about a back and forth between the two that ultimately is going to end up with both of them getting some type of rub off of it. And, everyone else is covering it because they get clicks too. If you don't cover it to the extent of, what we don't talk about with Golden at Florida, then, it just goes away and you forget about it in 24 hours. There's a 24-hour news cycle. And the fact that Stephen A. brought it back up 24 hours later is the reason why we are where we are right now, continuing the cycle and spin.